Hi, volleyball fans, and welcome back to Volley Talk, the podcast created for volleyball lovers who want to dig deep into what is going on in NCAA and international volleyball. I'm your host, Sarah Pavin. I'm an Olympian, beach volleyball world champion, former Nebraska Cornhusker, and longtime pro, both indoor and on the beach.
And I'm Adam Schultz, former indoor player, international volleyball coach, and the show's resident stat guy.
Things got a little messy this week.
We had a Halloween week, let me tell
Trick
you.
or treat, mostly tricks.
Mostly tricks.
For those of you who've been waiting for us to discuss the top teams, wait no longer.
Here we go.
We are diving in this week. I hope you guys are excited. They haven't really been challenged, and the games have been kind of boring, which is why we haven't talked about them, but you're welcome. We are going to dive in to Nebraska and Texas later in the episode. And speaking of tricks, the Big 12, namely Iowa State, heard our episode last week and were like, you don't know anything.
Well, and Colorado.
So the Big 12 just kind of clapped back at us.
And is as messy as ever.
That's fun. We are very excited to dive in to all this mess and not mess. Get ready for our unfiltered opinions. We know that's why you tune in. So let's get started. Time for some weekly highlights.
And there were a few.
Before we dive in, there were some follow-up questions from our offensive segment last week.
Yes. Hit me with the questions.
What does tight mean on a set? Intuitively, I assume that means it's too close to the net, but I would love a concrete definition. Same with a ball that trails off the net.
So I think there's two things you can say about a tight set. One is if you can't swing through the ball and finish your swing without going onto the net, that's too tight. So your arm swing connects the ball and then generally comes down beside your body. If you have to stop at the top for fear of hitting the net, that's definitely too tight. That's not necessarily a practical definition because the ball can still be tight and that's not the case, but that's how you know for sure. What about as a hitter? What would you say?
If you're extending forward to try to reach the ball, if you feel like the set is like in the blocker's hands and you can't make a full swinging motion, those are tight. Trailing off the net, you, as a viewer, you can tell that this is happening if the attacker has to slow down their approach, if they're hitting near the attack line or not near the net, or if their body looks like it's in front of the ball. That often means that the set has trailed off the net. And what a lot of volleyball is watched from the side, so you can actually see the path of the ball as it leaves the setter's hands, and sometimes you can see that it kind of veers backward or toward the net. Second question was, I would love you to explain a bit about the volleyball plays you were talking about last week, like a 31, a 51. I feel like it has to do with what slots the players are in, but a clarification if possible.
So this is a good question. If you haven't seen a volleyball breakdown, you start on the left side of the court and you'll see a lot of people number the court 1 through 9. So 9 different segments starting again at the left side pin and moving all the way to the right side pin. 9 equal quadrants, and then people will also go height at the antenna. So, 1 would be very low, very fast. A 2 would be somewhere in the middle, and a 3 would be kind of top of the antenna. Then you can build a whole setting paradigm on top of those numbers. You don't normally see this for outside hitters. You use it mostly with middles, which is what the 31 and the 51 refer to. So the 31 is always in front of the setter, generally kind of in between position 3 and 4. And it's a 1 tempo, so it's low and very fast. Now,
so that's the ball that you see the middle go far from the setter and it shoots across the net in between the middle and right side blockers of the other team.
And that's always the goal. You're trying to run that set in between those two blockers. The 51 is generally right in the middle of the court, a little bit closer to the 2 side, but it's always on top of the setter. So the middle is coming right to the setter. It's a quick set and it's right in front. The other one you will hear is a 61, which is very close to the setter, but just behind them. And so those are all your first tempo middle attacks in relation to where they are on the net.
You'll also hear some people use letters to describe the middle attacks, but for a 101 segment, the numbers are more scientific and systemic
A little more
in how
intuitive.
in how they're describing it.
Yeah.
Those were a couple follow-up questions. We love them. So
Keep them coming.
if you want clarification on anything we've brought up in previous episodes, hit us up. We are more than happy to answer them. But as far as some highlights, Kelsey Cook and Justine Wong Orantes are pregnant.
Congratulations.
Do you think this is the end of their either A, professional career, or B, national team career? Or do you think they timed this out to come back and play in LA?
I can't say.
We don't
for
expect
certain,
you to know. I'm just asking
but
what your gut is.
The timing leaves the door open should they choose to want to play again.
I think they'll continue to play in Love because it's convenient. They can go home at night to their family. They can live in the U.S. I'm sure Love can arrange it so that they're on a team as close to support as possible. So I bet they'll continue to play Love. National team, speaking from experience, things change real quick when you have a baby. And I know that I would not personally want to travel and be gone for weeks at a time. That is just me. I know everybody's different, but it is a huge responsibility.
I think I could see Justine coming back before Kelsey.
So congrats to them. That's very exciting. Okay, rankings. Things kind of settled down this week. We saw in a ranking perspective. Okay. And by this week, I mean the rankings last week. But there were only a couple decent size movers. We had TCU go down to 13 from 10.
Fair.
They had a rough week last week, and Florida entered the top 25.
Deserved. I think they're a good team. A little inconsistent, but they should be up there.
Now for the results.
Yikes.
Wowie.
Trick more than treat.
The Big 12 definitely heard our segment and said, no, thank you. Iowa State and Colorado in particular. Let's start with the Big 12. BYU lost to Central Florida in 4. That should not happen. I'm sorry.
No, that's, yeah. I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah. Wow. Iowa State went out and beat Baylor in 3, and then they beat Arizona State in 5. Wow. They were like, you just ignored us in the rankings. You skipped over us.
I mean, they're
We're
not
upset.
wrong. So my question to you is, with those 2 wins, is Iowa State for real?
I don't even think I can say anything anymore because I don't know. They had a good week. Are you going to have a good week this week? Next week? The week after? I don't know.
I mean, those are 2 big wins. I think you got to give them some love. I know they have a tough schedule ahead of them, but congrats to Iowa State. I think my Big 12 rankings would be totally different this week.
Sorry, Iowa State. We are really sorry that we didn't take you seriously enough to talk about you last week.
We're going to watch you.
This is karma. Arizona beat TCU 3 straight.
TCU is going through it.
TCU is on the downswing. They peaked 3 months too early.
Yeah. The
Wow.
TCU ship is sinking and filling with water faster than they can bail it out. And that offense is just too fast to be controlled at this point.
Fast and furious. Wow.
I'm off them. I was giving them the benefit of the doubt.
They were my
I
surprise team early
Yeah.
in the season, and I'm off them too. You just can't get it together these days.
No, their last several matches have just looked disjointed, and I can give you 2, but now it's a pattern. I'm not. I think they're going to finish 4th or 5th in the Big 12 now.
I can't believe I had them as second last week. What was I thinking?
Well,
What was I on last week I said all this stuff?
They started really well, and you would assume that getting that offense dialed in was going to be the hard part, but it has just fallen off the rails.
Well, the last one is Colorado beat Baylor in 4-2, so Baylor went through it last week.
Congrats to Colorado. I mean, I didn't think, having watched them play, that they would compete with those top teams. They're big, but skill-wise, and they keep winning.
At the very least, we gave everybody a reason to reach out and tell us how wrong we were, so you're welcome. Okay, SEC, Missouri beat Tennessee in 4, and Florida lost to South Carolina in 4. Welcome to the ranking. Goodbye again.
We've talked about this lack of consistency. I had Missouri pegged as a dark horse at the beginning of the season. They did nothing. Now they're beating ranked teams. What is going on? Tennessee, you're in. You got to keep it together.
Florida, you just got in and then you go lose to South Carolina. Like, come on now.
Yeah. I don't understand what's happening there.
ACC, North Carolina beat SMU in 5.
Again,
SMU, you climb up to number 5. You jump over Louisville last week, and then you pull this.
there's just, I don't know if it's a preparation. I don't know if it's heavy exam time. I don't know if athletes are super excited about Halloween and not prepared. But these losses with the athletes and the previous execution level that these teams have had, these shouldn't have been games.
Finally, we got the Big Ten. Michigan beat Penn State in 5, and then Penn State got crushed by Indiana 3 straight. Honestly, I put that in because Penn State is still ranked somehow. So I include them in this. But, like, am I that surprised that Indiana beat them? Not really. But in Michigan, it probably should have been a good game, which it clearly was. It went 5. I'm just talking about Penn State for interest's sake at this point.
Well, they somewhat righted the ship for a second
For
there.
a game. For one game.
You look at a program like that, you look at the history like that, you would think, okay, I understand the crash and burn with what happened with Izzy Stark. It's going to take some time.
The time has passed.
Well, and they start going up, and you're like, okay, here it comes. They're going to be competitive now. They're figuring out what their team looks like without Izzy Stark. You have people stepping up, finding new roles. I figured they would keep going and they would be competitive, but it's done. It's over.
Get them out of the ranking. They're still, like, not even in the 20s. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Like, you guys, this is like what they did with the Penn State men's team in the spring. Let's roll that back. They kept Penn State men's team in the rankings for so long, and I think they were like 0-8.
That name value. Gotta love that name value.
The last one, USC beat Minnesota in 5.
I'm not that surprised about that one. I could have seen
I felt like that was an interesting result.
It's a lot of young players going after it. 2 programs on the rise, I think, given their young players and how they're coming about.
Minnesota's been getting better.
Yep, totally. So has USC, in my opinion.
A lot of wild results this week.
Makes for fun watching.
Mostly from the Big 12, and I'll apologize to them again. I'm so sorry. At the time that this is going to be released, we will know what the new rankings are. I'm very curious to see what's going on. The 2 results we did not talk about involved Texas. Yes, you know what we mean. Don't worry. We are going to dive into that in a little bit, so stick with us.
Okay, so we got a ton of positive feedback about the educational offensive system talk from last week. So along with that, we also got a request to do something similar for defense. Now, I don't think it's quite as straightforward to talk about defense as it is to talk about offense, but we're going to give it a shot. Okay?
It's a little more nuanced. The system needs to work together.
Exactly. Well, it needs to work together, but a good defense is dependent on the offense that you're facing.
Your game plan.
Exactly. I have 2 basic philosophies when it comes to defense, and then you build from there. The first one is a successful defense ends with either a stuff block or a good transition attack. So if you can accomplish one of those 2 things,
Easy peasy.
that's kind of the overarching goal. Same as putting the hitter in a hittable window. And then the other thing about defense is you want to take away or you want to limit the team you're playing against their strengths. You want to force them to beat you with things that are their secondary shots or things that they're not necessarily as good at. I think you're looking at those 2 things. A, stuff block or good transition opportunity, and B, you don't want to let a team beat you with their strength. Those are kind of the 2 premises that I build my defensive systems off of.
In theory, that makes a ton of sense. In practice, how often do we see it executed well?
Oh, not very often.
Not very often.
Let's get into how you do this. It starts with the block. That is your first opportunity to affect the attacker.
First line of defense.
But as we talked about block and defense working together, the thing that's really important is the blockers can't see the defenders. So the blockers are going to do their jobs, and the defenders have to work around what the blockers are doing. So we had a question recently about somebody saying, "Hey, I see the blockers even indoor going, 1 or 2 behind their back."
Yeah, so I've had some people write in asking what the symbols are as well.
Okay, so we can answer this right away. If you put a 1 behind your back, that means the blocker is taking away the line swing. If I put a 2 behind my back, that means the blocker is taking away the cross swing. And I mean the outside blocker, not the middle.
The middle's only job, middle is a very complex position. The middle's main job is to close the block to the outside hitter so that there's no hole in the block, no seam, because that leaves more opportunities and more options that the defense has to cover for. So the blocker in the middle wants to just close the block to the outside. The outside blocker is the one that is setting the block. They are the ones that ultimately determine where the block is set up. And when you see them put symbols behind their back, they are telling the defense on behind them in the second line what they are taking so that the defense knows how to work around them to cover the court as well as possible.
So this is some of that communication that we're talking about with the block and the defenders working together. Everybody has to be on the same page. You might also see a middle go 5 or 1, which means to the defenders that they are taking away that side of the court for the middle attack.
There might also be symbols. Different teams might have different symbols if the middle has decided to commit block on a good pass with the other team's middle. This is all part of like your team's defensive identity, your system as a team, but there is always an understanding based on what the blockers are showing the defenders of as to what is going to happen.
I can't say every college team does this, but they should be doing this. You should have a game plan for every rotation that you're playing against. Generally what happens is for each rotation the setter is in, so if the setter's in position 1 or 6 or 5, that setter has a pattern of distribution for that rotation.
If your video guys are doing their job, and look at enough video, pull enough data, you can extrapolate the trends to determine what their order of preference is on a good pass, on a medium pass, and on an out of system pass. It's impossible to be all over everything, so you're playing percentages and probabilities when you're playing defense.
Some of the best defensive advice I've ever been given is if you try to defend everything, you defend nothing.
Yeah.
Again, this comes back to what we talked about at the beginning. You have priorities. In rotation 1, we are not going to let the left side score down the line. That's priority number 1. Priority number 2 is we're not going to let the middle hit to 5. And our last priority, either might be the dump or the right side attack.
Or it's just like we are not leaving X player with a single block. There are so many different ways to approach it and how to determine your priorities and what those look like.
Everybody has a job in each rotation, and you're trying to do your job as best as you can. Let's talk about some of the blocking adjustments you can make to cover some of these different scenarios. Setup 1 is called bunch blocking. You actually see this quite a lot in the college game where your 3 blockers start primarily in the middle of the court or very close to the middle of the court, and then they work their way outside to block the outside ball. I have several problems with how this is executed at the college level, but the goal of setting your block up like this is that you're defending the middle of the court first because it generally happens the fastest. So your outside hitters are helping with that middle set to make sure they don't score, or their back row, generally the pipe ball in this case. And then if the ball goes outside, then we're swing blocking outside to do that. That is a great strategy in theory. However, it goes wrong, in my opinion, in a couple ways. Watch some of the outside blockers as the pass is coming in and they're bunch blocking. They turn their hips to face the outside of the court to start their swing block because the offenses some of them are very fast. Once that outside blocker has rotated their hip, they can no longer help in the middle. So there's actually no reason for them to be standing so close.
Far inside.
Exactly. you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because you're not actually in a position to help. This is a
You're not in a
huge
position to help, and you're creating movement once you get to the outside. So you're not doing anything particularly well.
it's a good strategy in theory that is executed poorly.
I think honestly that starts at the club level. I think that's how swing blocking is taught now at the club level.
Yeah, it might be. I haven't been in enough club
But
practices
and you
to know.
see in NCAA how many one-on-ones there are, particularly in the pipe and in the middle. Like teams have started prioritizing the speed of the offenses and covering for that, as opposed to like legitimately putting up a solid wall with 2+ blockers every time, even against the middle.
Yeah. Bunch blocking is your first setup, which allows all 3 blockers to help with any of the middle attacks. Something else you can do, and you would see this or you would do this against really fast offenses, is you would take your outside blockers and you would start them maybe halfway in between the middle blocker and the pin so that they're further outside and they have less distance to cover when they go to block that fast outside set. I think in the college game, this would be a far more effective blocking setup because you can still get one hand to help in the middle. You stay square to the net. You can step out and have really good hands when you go to block the outside. And I think you'd see a lot more effective blocking if teams did this, especially since a lot of the offenses are very fast and the sets are low. You don't have to get high. You have to remember the benefit of swing blocking is to try and get as high as possible when you block.
Which you don't want to do when you're blocking anyway.
Yeah,
You want to go over the net really far.
unless you're blocking the Russians. That's where you start.
Don't
swing
go high
blocking.
on the block, everybody. Get over the net.
So you see a lot of tools because of this. Shoulders aren't square. Swing blocking requires really good timing and vision to close, and it's a very high level skill. So I think you should generally move your outside blockers a little further outside, allow them to get stable, work back into the court, and have your middles there. You can still help with the pipe if you're disciplined and you get one hand on the middle. Very few teams, beside maybe Louisville, are beating you with their middle attackers.
Nebraska.
Fair. Nebraska
Andy
does as
Jackson
well.
runs that slide
Yeah.
like no other. In an ideal world, if possible, you want 2 to 3 blockers up on the pipe. You want your right side blocker to help with the shoot set in the middle and then react to the outside ball over top. You want your left side blocker to help on the quick set in front and behind the setter and react to the right side set. In an ideal world, are we seeing that in the NCAA? Not a ton anymore. If you were bunching, that is how the responsibilities would be distributed.
Those are kind of your overview of how you would block and what you would want to do. There's lots of technical stuff around executing a good block, but we can talk about that another day. Now, let's talk about the defenders and what their jobs are and some of the basic setups that you see with those defenders. There are several things that drive you nuts when you watch college volleyball. Specifically, let's talk about those defenders in 1 and 5 to start. What's your ideal setup and responsibilities given a line block and a cross block?
So if the outside blocker is lining up, taking away the line swing, that means that the hitter should not be able to score down the line. Obviously, last week we talked about the hitter has all the control. Okay, but if we're talking volleyball theory here, that means the hard-driven ball is most likely going into the angle. So the person that's digging down the line needs to be ready to dig the tips. If you are capable of reading the tips and starting far back to get the touch off the block and then reading the tip and running under, perfect. If you're not particularly fleet of foot or you're not
Like most right sides?
yeah, or you're not great at reading the hitter, that is when you should go up under the block so that you're closer to the tip. What I hate is when the blockers leave line and the line diggers come up for tips anyways.
That's
You're
how
not
you get
taking
a
anything.
concussion.
You're not taking anything away. Okay, you just got a target on your face.
Pet peeve. I hear about that all the time.
So that's that.
Position 6 gets a little more nuanced with a little more reading involved. Talk to me about some of the strategies you can use against different hitters and then what your responsibility is as a 6 digger when the block is closed versus when it's not closed.
So if you're in position 6, It depends on if you have a hitter who likes to find hands, you need to stay really deep so that you can react to the balls that are hitting the block and going deep. If you are running a system and you see that your wing digger, meaning the digger that's in 1 or 5, goes up under the block for tips, that is leaving a lot of real estate down the line for the hitter to hit an off-speed shot, etc. So you need to shift a little bit in that direction to help cover the gap. If the line diggers, the wing diggers are digging down the line, that's when you need to stay a little more neutral in zone 6 and you want to play the seam of the block. Obviously, if the block is closed, this shouldn't be a huge seam, so you're going to stay a little more deep because everybody is back. But if the middle doesn't manage to get to the outside hitter and there's a hole in the block, that is position 6's responsibility to dig in between those blockers.
This comes down to team strategy and coach philosophy, but you'll see often if a middle doesn't close, the middle has 2 options. They can go straight up and take away their lane so the defenders can kind of fill in around them, or they can try and reach into the seam and close the block depending on how close they are. So those are your 2 options. Okay, so we've covered blocking, we've covered defending.
I wouldn't say it's a 101 class. This is a 201 class because block defensive systems are so complex. Like we could literally get in the weeds and just go crazy with this for our 301 class. So we're keeping it sophomore level. Okay.
We've done outside blockers in the pin. We've done the 6 blocker and their responsibility. Now let's talk about the off blocker. Okay.
By off blocker, he means if the left side attacker on the other team is hitting, it's the left side that's at the net on your side because they're not a part of the block. And if the right side is hitting, your team's right side attacker becomes the off blocker because they are not a part of the block.
So basically, this player has 2 options. You can either drop off the net and dig the hard-driven angle swing, or you can follow your middle blocker in and dig tips. I guess you could also do a triple block if they're out of system, but you basically have those 3 options. Now, what I see a lot of is, let's say for argument's sake, the left side on the opposing team is hitting. You see the block go up, you see the defender in 1 go in for tips, and then you also see the off blocker come in for tips. This is
You're wasting a
unnecessary.
defender.
You have 2 players covering the same ball. That off blocker should drop off the net, look for the hard driven. You know that any tip short over the block is position 1's responsibility. So if the tip comes into the angle, you should be fast enough to react to it.
You want to think of the defenders as like a pulley system, ideally. So we talked about if the block takes away the line, how zone 1 goes under for tips, position 6 slides a little over, you pull the whole defense around with them. So the off blocker should come off the net. What we didn't talk about is if the block decides they're going to block the cross court or angle swing, they leave the line open. So the person who's digging down the line should be back to dig the hard ball. In that case, because that line digger is pulling back, we talked about position 6 can stay deeper. The libero or the angle digger can slide into the angle more. And in that scenario, the off blocker can go under for tips because the whole system is kind of working the perimeter of the court together like a pulley.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. So you're always covering the correct position in as much court as possible as a group. I think from a system standpoint, that covers everything.
I mean, that's basic. Obviously, if you're playing a certain hitter, things change.
Yeah.
But as like a base theory for block defense, that's it.
And I will say the one thing that I don't think is executed very well is the ability to be in a defensive position to dig a hard driven and read a tip. There are
There's
many times.
not many people who do that very well.
You know, we've talked about I work on the block. That also applies to defenders, and I don't think that is executed very well.
Don't watch the ball.
Watch the hitter. There's so many times you see the ball can't be hit, or the hand comes up to tip, and the defenders are just dug in for a hard driven. That's a skill that I think should be a huge part of defense that's not executed particularly well.
Well, I will say Tips have gotten a lot more aggressive now.
True.
So it is a little harder to be able to read and react because people have gotten so much more aggressive with it. Yes, if somebody's coming in like the Statue of Liberty and they're not pulling their arm back, they're tipping, okay?
So that should give you a good idea of how defenses should operate and some of the things that you'll see teams doing. Now, we got a few more questions from our offensive session, which we'll cover maybe in listener questions. But if anything that we talked about kind of doesn't make sense or you have follow-up questions, please let us know. We will get to them. But we wanted to give you, again, an overview so you have something to look at as you're watching matches and understanding what those defensive teams are doing.
All right, as the title of the episode explains, we are down to only one unbeaten team in the NCAA. Go Big Red. That is Nebraska. Nebraska has been steamrolling everybody.
Haven't lost
Very
a set.
exciting for Cornhusker fans out there, but not so exciting to break down on a podcast. But
Nebraska was better. End of episode.
yeah, basically. And it might be the same story today, but we have gotten a ton of questions about Nebraska. We watched the Nebraska-Wisconsin game on Halloween night. So here we go. We are going to talk about that and the Cornhuskers in general.
So before we get into all of the questions that everybody has, let's talk about the game probably briefly because it honestly wasn't much of a game.
How would you summarize it?
Nebraska's just better.
That is exactly what I was going to say. Word for word, 3 words actually. Nebraska is just better.
They won 25-22, 25-19, 25-13, and they just have the ability to apply pressure consistently from all positions. They don't give you any plays off, and you have to earn wins, and Wisconsin isn't at that level. They're missing their starting setter, which I think really hurts them, obviously.
Wisconsin's still second in the Big Ten.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about the top 2 teams in the Big Ten.
Yes.
Regardless, Charlie Furbringer, a huge difference maker for Wisconsin, undoubtedly. But Wisconsin has held on to that spot, so they're no slouches.
No, they're still a good team, but they can't hang consistently with the firepower and consistency that Nebraska is playing with right now, offensively and defensively.
Okay, so question. What do you think is the biggest plus for Nebraska, and what do you think is their biggest weakness?
Oh, those are easy. Their biggest plus is their middles. They are unbelievable in the middle. You saw against Wisconsin, Alec hit 538 and Jackson hit 600, and they're getting set a ton. They can control the middle of the court so well with those 2 middles. It's almost unfair.
Is there a better middle duo in the country?
No.
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 I asked that question as a courtesy. Okay?
I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure it's close, to be
No.
honest.
Everybody talks about the Kentucky outside duo not even being close to anybody else. The Nebraska middle duo blows everybody out of the water. And I think a big reason for that is Rebecca Alec has increased her attacking ability this season.
You have to admire the work that she's put in to build that connection and to be offensive. Volleyball aside, she's just so much fun to watch. She's so easy to cheer for. I love watching her play.
Give me that swagger all
Yeah.
day, every day, everybody. Okay? I love a bit of personality. I love a bit of attitude, and she brings it,
But
and I'm obsessed.
the thing about it is she manages to do it in a way.
Non-threatening.
Yes. She walks around with this awesome swagger on the court, and you never think it's malicious. It's actually quite incredible to watch her. I'm really happy for her, and I think she's so much fun to watch.
That was a softball question. Obviously,
I
their
didn't-
middles are there.
I didn't finish the question because you asked
No,
me.
I know. Part 1
okay.
was a softball. I think part 2 was a softball too.
They're liberos. And that is not something that we have said about Nebraska for a
Ever?
long time. Honestly, watching that match, that's where they're going to fall apart. That's where they're vulnerable. The seam between Choboy and
Mouch. Which is confusing. The seam between the 2 liberos is their weak spot on their serve receive.
The dangerous thing about that is Their middles are so offensive that if a team can put them in trouble from a passing standpoint, you can also take away their best offensive options. If I was Danny, that's what I would be nervous about. That is my concern.
If you want to beat Nebraska, break down their libero serve receive. Namely, and I think Olivia Mouch is a better serve receiver than Choboy. I think Choboy is a better defender than Mouch. Break down Lainey Choboy's serve receive to neutralize the middle. That is probably the only way you're going to beat Nebraska.
Then you might have a chance.
Then you can put a double block in Harper Murray's face, which I don't think she's great at swinging against a solid double block. She needs a seam. She needs a one-on-one, which the middles usually give her. Adriano, she has gotten better as the season's gone on. She's not impressing me at all, though. If you're relying on Murray / Landfair and Adriano without the middles being a threat, that's how you're going to beat them.
I agree. We'll continue talking about Nebraska. I did want to highlight a couple things from Wisconsin's side that I thought went well for them. Grace Egan was a bright spot for them. She hit 471 on 17 balls. She gives
17 kills or 17 swings?
17 swings.
Oof.
She didn't get set a ton, but she still performed when called upon. I like that move because it allows them some flexibility on the left side. They put Quest in for Vyachik, and Vyachik struggled. She hit negative 125. She couldn't pass. I thought that she really hurt them. So having Grace Egan gives them a little bit of flexibility.
Well, Egan is their right side.
Yes.
But she was injured and we saw Quest playing right side. So having Egan back and then using Quest as a sub. Thank you, Kelly Sheffield, for attempting a couple substitutions.
Thanks for listening to the podcast.
He clearly listened. Just kidding.
I thought that was good, and I liked seeing Quest on the left. I think that's a good move for them. I think that's the right place for her, to be honest. And then I also really liked Alicia Andrews in the middle for them. I thought, going up against the best middle duo in the country, I don't want to say she held her own, but I liked what she brought to the table. And I thought that, this is a player that I think you can continue to build around and has a future there. So those were the bright spots for me in terms of Wisconsin and what they were playing, and probably why they're still second in the Big Ten.
Mimi Collier didn't do bad.
No, she was Mimi Collier.
Not as dominant as usual, but that's to be expected. Clearly the focal point of the Nebraska game plan because she's been performing so well, but hitting 234 with all the attention on you, that's respectable.
Yeah, I don't think you can ask for anything more from her in that situation. I mean, I think for me, this sums up the game. Wisconsin had 6 block assists on the match. Nebraska had 19. Wisconsin had 40 digs, and Nebraska had 54. Not only were they very efficient offensively, they had more blocks, they had more digs, which means they had more transition opportunities.
It's an entire system.
Yes.
Like, it starts with the serve.
Yes.
The Nebraska serve created disruptions, which allowed their block defense to get set up, which, it's a whole, system they've got going on.
They were just better in every facet of the game, period. I think they only lost the lead twice maybe in the first set, and other than that, they were never behind. And the game never felt out of control for them. They were always in the driver's seat.
So we've got a lot of questions about Nebraska over the last little while, and we have answered them here and there. But since we're talking about them, let's just hit them all up. The first one, speaking of liberos getting targeted on serve receive, we need a mid-season update on your opinion of the Nebraska libero battle and the constant switch-ups. So we did talk about this a few weeks ago.
I think Danny's waiting for somebody to grab the spot and run with it. And I think she keeps giving both of them the opportunity to do that, and neither of them are taking it with their play.
Or do you think that she is strategically picking who is going to have the jersey depending on who they play and what the team needs that night?
Maybe, but that team needs passing all the time.
Yeah.
If I'm Danny, I can sacrifice. Our block defense is good. We serve well enough. If we lose a couple digs, but we're in system all the time, I'm taking that 100% of the time.
Yeah, I think as a team, you're just any team, not just Nebraska, your priority needs to be consistent serve receive.
Yes.
Because if you're siding out at a high level and you're Nebraska, you're going to steal points. You're
100%.
going to steal points with your serve. You're going to steal points. They're great, not like an outstanding serve team based on like aces, but it's strategic to set up their block defense, which is their strength. You're going to steal points, but you need to be siding out at a very high level all the time. So I would prioritize serve receive.
On top of the serve receive, you're waiting for one of the liberos to come out and be a leader, to run the serve receive, to be that player in the back row. And I just haven't seen that. And sometimes that's hard to do when you're not playing amazing competition, but that spot is up for grabs. And in my opinion, neither of the liberos have done enough to earn it outright. So I think she's giving them a chance. I wouldn't be surprised if that conversation is, I'm going to keep rotating you guys until one of you makes it so I can't take you off the floor. And I don't think that's happened.
All right. When talking about what teams need to improve, most often you say more balance is needed if the team has that go-to hitter. But when talking about balanced teams, you say they need a go-to hitter to win a championship. Which do you have as a preference? As a defender, which would you rather face?
So this question wasn't originally about Nebraska, but I think it plays into what's going on
Because
in
we
Nebraska.
have
Yes.
been partially critical of Nebraska's insistence at being balanced and not letting, but like not having a player just be dominant on their own.
I spent a lot of time thinking about this since I've read this question because I'm like, okay, we have said both of these things in different occasions.
Yeah.
I need to clarify my definition of a go-to hitter. I know it when I see it, but I don't think I've articulated it particularly well to this point. For me, it's not about how many points you score. It's about your approach to how you attack the ball. And I would call that your risk profile or your hitting profile.
Ooh.
Let's look at an Olivia Babcock. When she's uncomfortable, she swings for hands. She swings for the court. You know she is trying to score a point. That doesn't mean she doesn't tip. That doesn't mean she's not strategic. But her default mentality is, I'm going to swing to score. Now,
when the game is on the line, she's taking a rip at the ball.
It doesn't necessarily matter game is on the line. That's just how she approaches attacking. Now let's flip this and talk about Nebraska. I know the conversation always comes to this. It's Harper Murray. She gets most of the sets on Nebraska. And in watching her play specifically against Wisconsin, if I was going to put a player profile on her, I would say she is an opportunistic, error-averse hitter. And what I mean by that is, of course, she's capable of swinging, high hands. She has the cross-court swing, but she makes those swings when she's very certain she's not going to get blocked
and
she can see it's open. It's comfortable, yes. As soon as she's uncomfortable, it's a tip, it's a roll shot, it's a recycle. She is not challenging her swings in uncomfortable positions. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are players who make a great living doing that, but she's not necessarily the person you want to set out of system after 20
against
in big
a
matches.
Double, triple, well-formed block.
So let me ask you this, knowing that we're talking about player profiles. Who do you think embodies that go-to hitter on Nebraska?
Andy Jackson.
I would agree
and
with you.
unfortunately, I hate to say it, it can't be a middle because the middle attack is so dependent on being close to in system. There's more to being a middle attacker. You can't just depend on yourself. It depends on the quality of the pass predominantly because Bergen Riley can get her the ball. But yeah, I would say the mentality that we're talking about on Nebraska is Andy Jackson.
So going back to the original question, the balanced offense is always what you want. You want all of your players involved all the time. You want everybody to feel engaged. And the more you separate your sets and the more balanced it is, the harder it is for the opposing team to play defense. I will always go for that outcome. And Nebraska does that really well. However, you need somebody who has that risk plus mindset that I'm going to go for those swings in small moments, in big moments, and that's where my question mark with Nebraska
wants
lays.
to be in those uncomfortable situations because
100%.
they have the confidence to know that they're going to get the job done. I would say Mimi Collier has that mindset.
Absolutely.
Kennedy Martin has that mindset.
Olivia Babcock has that mindset.
Yeah.
It's less about the points and more about the mindset or the approach to attacking.
Something that we didn't touch on about Nebraska that I want to bring up. I am obsessed with the fact that Danny is keeping Andy Jackson in to serve, which we didn't see in her first 2 years, and using her as a back row option when she's playing defense.
Genius.
I love that. Thank you so much for breaking the mold of what a middle needs to do. There is no textbook on how you need to play, but you see coaches get so wrapped up in like, I am going to take one of my middles out and make sure the libero serves for them, blah, blah, blah. The fact that they are using her as a serving threat, not having a DS serve for her, letting her play defense and hit in the back row. Thank you for not being cookie cutter.
Well, and this is a prime example of a coach leaning into an athlete's strengths and using them and utilizing her. She's got a great serve.
Like, not all middles are, Bambi on ice trying to hit in the back row. She's athletic. She's strong. She's physical.
Jumps really well. Yeah. No,
Thank you.
Totally agree
I'm
with you.
so happy that
Yes.
this is happening for real.
Yes.
Okay, another question. Nebraska hasn't had any player with double-digit kills in the last few games. Is that a cause for concern or a feature for this team? I think when this question was submitted, they had played like not super great competition. And they're steamrolling everybody, not even close, in 3 sets.
To me, this kind of comes back to the balance question. It doesn't matter who gets double digits. It doesn't matter who scores points as long as you're winning. And I think a lot of really, really good teams don't have that necessarily standout player from a statistical standpoint. Everybody's getting involved. I don't think there's any issue with that.
Do you think DBK switching liberos each game will eventually affect Nebraska negatively later on postseason? John Cook has spoken about DBK wanting to keep everyone happy, but will that disturb the players' consistency? Same with Taylor Landfair and Sigler. Okay, I don't know if Danny and John have had conversations offline. I don't know what their interactions have been. Maybe she has said that to him. I don't know. But knowing Danny, she is not the kind of person that does things just to make people happy.
Watching her coaching decisions, that's not my take on it either. I think she's waiting, like we said before, for somebody to take the spot. I think she's giving them opportunity, but I don't think it's to keep both of them happy. I think it's because nobody has stepped up and earned the spot.
Will it affect them negatively postseason? I mean, they've played the whole season like this.
I think it will. I think if
Really?
if somebody
well, we talked about how we would try to beat Nebraska, but I think it's the mindset part that neither one of the two is taking that position for themselves. Maybe that, but the way that the system is working, I don't think so.
I think if they go in with uncertainty and nobody has taken the spot, that is going to potentially be an issue in terms of executing for that player. They can win. I mean, both of them are good enough to allow the team to win for the most part, but I would want that position solidified as a coach going into the tournament.
Well, I also love that they are bringing Sigler in for Landfair as opposed to the typical DS. Sigler is a great player in her own right and attacker. What I would love to see is them using Sigler in a back row attack situation when she is in the back row for Landfair. We know Landfair is not a back row player. I don't think that switch up is weird because Landfair's been getting taken out her whole career at Nebraska in the back row. I think it's good that they're getting Sigler experience.
Yes.
Will she transition into that front court role next year? Maybe, probably. But I would love to see them use her in the back row as an attack option when she's there.
I think that's why you have her on the court. So I agree with everything you said.
Why is it that it seems this season Nebraska's getting a ton of overpass kills in their games?
Well, one of the reasons is Andy Jackson is serving, and she's got a great serve.
I just remember when I played at Nebraska, I'm a dinosaur, so it was like eons ago, but it was very error-averse serving strategy because the block defense was so good. Nebraska's identity is, their defensive strength. My guess is that the narrative was always minimize service errors so that because our defense will win us games. And I feel like with Danny It's like, yeah, our defense will win us games, but we can accelerate the process by being much more aggressive with our serve because our block is also really good. So I think it's a question of being more aggressive and causing that kind of lack of control on the other side.
I agree with your analysis of the mindset switch. I also think they have a couple players that hit the ball from a higher contact point and possibly a little harder than most passers are currently seeing. And I think those players are driving a lot of those overpasses. Just as a passer, when you don't see it, you're not sure how much to take off. Your angle is a little off because the ball's getting on you a little bit faster. The trajectory is a little bit different. I think that aggressive mindset, again, with the player profiles they have, force a few more overpasses.
Well, and the discussions from the other team, it might be like, we are not going to beat Nebraska if they've got a double block in our outside spaces the whole match. We need to push our passes to the net to make our middle an option. I don't know if that's the case for sure, but I would assume that discussions are we need to force our passes to the net to give ourselves a chance. Do you think Andy Jackson's level of success on the slide will translate at the same level professionally and internationally?
Yes.
I was actually thinking about this while I was watching the Wisconsin game, and I agree. I think it will because she gets off the ground fast off of one leg. Her contact point is very high. She's able to hit really good angles. I think it will.
I agree with everything that you said. Her slide attack is not going to be what limits her international career. She's going to need to become a little bit more of a disciplined blocker, I would say, and definitely needs to be able to hit in front of the setter, which I think she's totally capable of. Those would be the areas where I'm like, hey, that's where you need to see improvement. But I think her slide is money. Been a little tough to talk about Nebraska because they've just been so dominant. Like, it's fun to watch if you're a Nebraska fan, but from like a quality of volleyball standpoint, it's been a little bit of a yawn fest.
And to just like have a discussion about it, it's like Nebraska crushed again.
Yeah.
Like, what do you say?
But I think these questions were really good. It was fun to watch them play Wisconsin, even though it wasn't close. There were good plays. Wisconsin pushed them at least a little bit, forced them into something. So yeah, it was good. I enjoyed watching them play. I think the questions were great, and now we'll see who else comes up and if they're challenged anymore. And I know we addressed this: is Nebraska going to go all conference play without losing a set? And I was bullish on that not happening. I'm sliding into it might be possible. Like, they're playing that well.
We'll find out. Let's see what happens. So the only other remaining unbeaten team heading into this week was Texas.
Boy, did they blow that.
They lost not just one, but two matches this weekend. It was not good for the Longhorns.
They had two. I mean, both opponents they played are top 10 opponents. Like, they were.
It was a tough weekend for
Yeah.
sure.
The Aggies game was better than the Kentucky game. So
Oof, rough.
let's go. Let's go match by match, and then we can talk about some of the trends we saw over those two games and what they have to do to kind of right the ship. So let's start with the Aggies. What was your impression of the match?
I've not been high on Texas A&M this season, but I thought Kendall Stowers was so good.
45 swings, 22 kills, hit 400.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I thought Kosuk Paulo was really good.
23 sets, 15 kills, hit 609.
Holy moly. And then Lednicki is just their like solid, steady
Garbage eater.
go-to player.
Yeah. She
So-
didn't actually play amazingly well. She hit
No.
under 200. She didn't need to.
And it was crazy because after 10 in the fifth set, they didn't set her. The ball exclusively went to Stowers and Kosuk Paulo.
We've talked about teams that have go-to players and then balance. For me, this was Texas A&M kind of figuring out what that balance was. Texas obviously had a game plan to slow down Lednicki, and I guarantee you they thought, we stop Lednicki, we're going to win. And they had two other players step up, and their setter recognized what was happening and gave them more balls, and Texas could not adjust and slow those other two players down. That to me was a masterclass in understanding the assignment for the game, what the other team was doing, and then making adjustments. So I think kudos to Texas A&M for sure.
It was cool to see other players step up. And Stowers has been having a pretty good season so far. It's not like she's coming out of nowhere, but
She was the show.
she did outstanding. Tori Stafford also was
Oof.
very good.
Very good.
The way that they were running her on that high inside set, and she was just punishing the ball into the sharp angle, unstoppable.
That was one thing that I didn't like about Texas A&M.
I
They
mean,
did not pick up when they were running that set, and it happened consistently.
I
And there
kept
was no
waiting for them to
adjustment.
make
Yeah.
her hit line, but I was like, okay. But it was still impressive that she was hitting that angle
Oh,
every time.
Wow. And the amount of distance she can cover in the air to close
Yeah.
to that ball is super impressive.
Yeah. Abby Vanderwall attacked well in system.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk
Qualified a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about Texas now that we've stopped gushing about Texas A&M.
I mean, we gushed for like a minute.
That's a lot for us.
That's a lot for us, but I feel like the people are not going to be happy with how little time we spent on them. But
Well, we can go back if we need to.
okay. My problems with Texas.
I mean, we're going to talk about both matches, but I think there were a couple common threads that ran between both. So we can highlight those and then talk about how they affected each match. So what did you see overall, and if there were any similarities between their loss to Kentucky and their loss to Texas A&M?
I don't think Texas serves aggressively enough. I think both Texas A&M and Kentucky were in system always.
Yes, I would agree with that. They were all
They were
options all
serving
the
muffins,
time. Yeah.
okay, over the net. I think that makes it very hard to set up any type of defense.
Especially when the attackers coming at you were as good as Texas A&M and Kentucky.
Exactly. Because they did what they did. It's not like, or what they normally do. It's not like Kentucky or A&M did anything outside of the box. Brooklyn DeLay and Eva Hudson for Kentucky put up unbelievable numbers. Everybody else was
Not that good. They had
Yeah.
38 kills between the two of them, and both of them hit over 400, and nobody else really did anything.
you need to serve a little more aggressively to not make it so easy. Do you know what I mean?
Sometimes you'll see servers struggle with either the depth or moving players side to side, but Texas struggled with both. They served the middle third of the court, so the passers didn't have to move forward or backwards, and then they served right at players. No seams, no nothing, and no pace on the ball.
Well, and then in the Kentucky match, they served Brooklyn DeLay every single ball. She was nailing these passes. Like, how about we mix it up a little bit and see if we can break somebody down?
Yeah, no adjustments.
0 adjustments.
I kept waiting for something to change for a strategy, especially in the Kentucky match.
Yeah.
Because Texas served a little bit better in sets 3 and 4 against Texas A&M. They got them in a little bit of trouble after serving poorly for the first 2 sets, but we saw no adjustments versus Kentucky.
No. So I have an issue with their serving. Their passing is not consistent.
Who did you think struggled passing the most?
Probably Vanderwall when she's in the front row. And honestly, it kind of affected everybody at different points in the Kentucky match.
Fair. I did not think their libero, Emma
Halter?
Halter, had a very good passing game. I thought she was pulling balls
Which game?
off the net. Kentucky specifically, but there were times where she struggled against A&M as well. Kentucky specifically was trying to serve to one to make Swindle set from behind her, which I think is a very good strategy. You know our opinion
We
on
don't
Swindle.
like Swindle. That was going to be my third issue
Well,
with them.
There were some interesting serving strategies against Texas that I thought exposed a few potential weaknesses.
My third issue is their setter.
I
I feel like they're better when the libero has to set an in-tempo back set ball to Tori Stafford than when Swindle has to set like anything.
well, that might be a little facetious.
So for all you people who are about to get on your keyboards and tell me how mean I am, I'm exaggerating, okay? Thank you.
But I will say, anytime Swindle had to bump set, the balls were almost unhittable. That I will stand by. There were a couple times where she bump set balls where her team didn't know who was supposed to be hitting. One ball hit the floor, the other one went over a hitter's head. There was one outside the antenna. Like, her bump setting was not good. And in fact, the team bump setting in general is not good. Anytime they had to go to their platform to set one of their players, it was almost exclusively a volley over. That was a huge issue.
You guys know how I feel about out of system setting. You know how I feel about running a middle in an out of system setting. It is basics, people. It requires focus, engage those glutes, lift the ball. Okay?
But I think it highlights how things break down right from the get-go. You normally only see maybe 2 or 3 bump sets a match if you're passing relatively well. They weren't. There were many of them, and those balls were unhittable. There were compounding mistakes for me. The pass wasn't good, and then the set wasn't good, and hitters weren't making good decisions. Very rarely in watching Texas this week did I think, hey, that player bettered the ball.
Mm.
And to me, that was kind of the underlying issue. You're not going to pass great all the time. You're not going to set great all the time. But nobody kind of made that next contact better. That's what I saw most of.
I'm going to go back to Kentucky. You know that their franchise players are Brooklyn DeLay and Eva Hudson. How are you letting them go off on you like that? Like, make the right side beat you. Make the middles beat you. Get a double block set up early with the defense in position every time against those two. I don't understand how they let that happen.
The defensive game plan against Kentucky left me scratching my head.
Yeah.
You could literally go stand all 3 blockers on the left side, and you'd probably have been more successful.
But my other thing is, like, you're serving muffins to Brooklyn DeLay. At least if you're going to serve a muffin, make her move.
Short.
Serve her short. Make her pass a short ball to at least make her life difficult getting outside for an approach. If you're going to insist on serving her every single ball.
I think Texas took Halloween off. That's my opinion.
Trick or treat.
There was not a lot of good things happening from a preparation standpoint, from a game plan standpoint. It was kind of head scratching.
We watched a bunch of them early in the season, and I was like, yeah, they're legit. I was very disappointed watching them this weekend.
Okay, so
I was happy. Okay, I was impressed with Tori Stafford.
Tori Stafford was steady. I thought
she's doing her job.
Yes, and even from a leadership standpoint, I saw her in Pitt. You never really saw her get fired up. There were a lot of personalities on that team, and I don't want to say she didn't get fired up, but she
had emotion. I thought
she was maybe the 3rd leader on that team from an emotional input standpoint.
Okay.
I really liked her stepping up. You could see her get mad a couple times in the Texas A&M match and then come back and make a big play. I thought for me, her leadership, even though they lost, was a highlight. I thought she did a really good job in that regard, both with her leadership and with her play.
I think Kari Spears is doing a good job. I think offensively, Abby Vanderwall's doing a good job. I don't think their middles are effective enough offensively or used frequently enough to have a big impact. And obviously the issues that we outlined. But I think their outside core is very strong offensively.
So there were a couple things that I wanted to highlight. I thought Kari Spears struggled in the first 2 sets against Texas A&M and then found her rhythm in the 3rd and 4th set. And for me, that's important because as a freshman, how you deal with adversity, I think says a lot about you. And the fact that she could maybe not start her best, they're on the road, it's a hostile environment, there's a lot of emotion there. For her to be able to level out and continue to take good swings, I don't care what the result is, but her approach and attitude didn't change. I was really impressed with that. Abby Vanderwall was level, like you said. I thought she was really good in system. I think out of system, she was exposed a little bit when she has to slow down her approach, when the timing's not quite right. I think she loses her vision. I didn't love her decisions in those moments, so something for her to work on. I actually think overall it's good for Texas to lose these matches with these young players in here, a little bit of a reset. I think it's tough when all you do is win as a freshman, then you don't really learn how to deal with those situations. So going into the tournament, I know we still have some conference playoff, but I think this is going to serve them well long term.
So do you think Nebraska and Texas are still the top 2 teams in the country?
Oh, I think Texas is better than they showed this weekend.
Do you think Kentucky is better than them?
I think if both teams are playing to their fullest potential, Texas is still better. But I think Texas's low end is also lower than Kentucky's. I mean, what we saw was if Texas's passing breaks down, they have some holes that you can exploit. They don't run the middle very well off the net. Swindle, I don't love her footwork. I don't think she can see the middle when it's pulled off the net, so you know where the ball is going. Tori Stafford's going to score. Kari Spears does a pretty good job at a system, but Vanderwall struggles in that regard. So I think that with a solid game plan and really good serving, there are some ways that you can take advantage of Texas, and they're not infallible. With a freshman left side, the libero for Texas, Emma Halter, needs to pass the seam, needs to be a little more in charge, and needs to be dialed in on serve receive. I think that's going to be one of their keys moving forward in terms of avoiding this situation, because teams now are going to come at Vanderwall. They're going to serve her in the front row, try and take her out of rhythm, and Texas is going to need to find a way to shelter her a little bit, take a little bit of that pressure off so that she can stay in system, and they're going to have to be able to run their middle. They took Ames out, they put Harvey in. They seem to have a little bit of a rotating middle situation right now. That connection between Swindle and the middle, or which other setter's coming in and playing on that double sub, their middle needs to be a threat.
Do we chalk this up to just a bad weekend or red flags?
I think it's both. I think that teams will see what the game plan or the roadmap to putting Texas in trouble is. I'm curious to see what adjustments Texas makes. Like, do they chalk this up to, hey, we just didn't serve well enough? Or do they look
But I feel like that's a mindset.
I agree.
I feel like they've been able to get away with it and playing good top 10 teams at this point in the season where people have dialed in their systems. They have played a lot of top 10 teams, a lot of top 25s. But at this point but they did the top teams early.
Yeah, so
people have dialed their stuff in.
Well, they're super physical as a team. And when everything is messy on both sides of the net, that physicality really helps. When you get teams that are buttoned up, like Texas A&M played really good defense. They had a very good system in place. They outblocked them 14-4. That doesn't happen by accident.
And this is the second year in a row that A&M beat them.
Well, there is that too. Now that the systems are in place, now that teams have game plans, what is the adjustment? You're not just more physical. So I think this is a crossroad for them. I'm curious whether the coaching staff will chalk it up to a bad weekend or whether they're going to go back to the drawing board and go, okay, here are the things that we really need to focus on for the rest of conference play.
If you ask me right now, if Nebraska and Texas played each other, Nebraska would systematically tear Texas apart.
Ooh.
Because they're just as physical. Neither team is like prolific on the service end, but I think Nebraska serves better and more strategically.
Yeah.
I think if they were to play right now, Nebraska would dismantle them.
It's not a bad take. It's not a bad take.
All right, there we go. Nebraska, as we said, the only unbeaten team left. Will they hold on to it? Will they drop a set in Big Ten play? We will find out. Texas needs to get it together here to right the ship.
You think Kentucky's number 2 next week?
Yes. All right, everyone. Time for our favorite part of the episode. You guessed it. It's listener question time. Okay. So, question 1. Who are your 3 nominees for Coach of the Year?
Oh.
A tough one right off the bat.
Okay, so I think number 1 for me would be Dave Shundell. Purdue was decimated
Holy moly.
by the transfer portal. They lost almost all of their top end players. He was considering quitting after that happened, and I can't say that I blame him. And he has got that team motivated, playing well, beating good teams with nobody. I say nobody. I understand everybody at this level is good, but they don't have take your pick.
Chip
player. And so to see that level of execution and compete when the team and the coaching staff could have packed it in after losing those players, kudos to him. I think he's doing a fantastic job. I would say Steve Aird at Indiana has done a good job. I watched them play. They're trying to run really fast. They're doing a bunch of different things. I think they're trying to find their own identity. They're competitive consistently. Are they there yet? I don't think so.
I think it's hard to make a case. I understand what you're saying about him, and he came to mind for me too, but I think it's hard to make a case for him because they're ranked 24th currently. I feel like you need to at least be in the top, 15.
If we're doing a legitimate Coach of the Year award, I think that's fair. When I think of Coach of the Year, I think about which coach is bringing the most value to their team, which coach is getting the most out of players
Okay.
that maybe is exceeding expectation.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously, Danny's doing a great job at Nebraska. I'm kind of thinking outside of the box and looking at when I watch teams, I'm going, that team is playing much better than I expected them to play.
I could make a case for Kevin Hambley at Stanford.
Totally.
They
He was my
lost-
4.
Who's your 3?
I really like Trent Kirsten at Oregon. I love
Another
watching.
program that was decimated.
I believe almost everybody lost that program. He's a first-year coach. His ability to get all new players on board, playing the way he wants them to. I think they have a bunch of freshmen playing on that team, and they're competitive. They are pushing teams. They
I'm
are winning
obsessed
matches.
with Clemente, you guys.
I think she is in the running for freshman of the
She's
year
so
for me.
good.
I have to acknowledge what he's done at that program from scratch, first year. I think it's impressive. Is Oregon going to make noise? Probably not. But again, watching them play, if you had told me at the beginning of the season that they would perform like that after losing literally everybody, I'd have been like, you're crazy.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go back to Hambley because he has a few freshmen that are really doing well, and they lost a couple key pieces, which is why he's in the conversation for me. I think the coaches who've had to legit rebuild from ground zero and are able to put together a competent, competitive team deserve way more recognition than they get, because you always see the ones who tell a kid they're interested and the kid's like, yes, I'll sign on the dotted line. Great.
That's why Texas isn't in the running for me.
That's why Nebraska's not in the running. Texas, Louisville, like Pitt, you know what I mean? Those programs just like attract top talent, whereas like the coaches who aren't working with the blue chip athletes have had to completely rebuild and just do it on their own without the prestige or name of the school. A+.
Yeah, those would be the highlights from my list.
Okay, question 2. Has Sarah ever low-key cheered for an underdog even once?
No.
Has she ever been one or won as one?
No. Do you
Wait,
think
I feel like I have cheered for an underdog semi-recently.
the only reason you would cheer for an underdog was if you knew that person, like on a personal level?
Oh, when does that affect me? I don't discriminate, people. If I like you, too bad I'm not cheering for you.
I mean, I think she was cheering for the Jays in the World Series.
I think I was.
They were underdogs.
I think I was. Hold on. I feel like recently watching volleyball, I was cheering for some kind of underdog, but clearly it's not standing out in my mind enough. I will say I was an underdog once.
When?
In
4
the
years old?
final in Brazil. My first season in Brazil. We've talked about this on the podcast. I played for Rio. We played Osasco, the entire Brazilian starting lineup. My team, I would say, were the underdogs.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
And we won.
Do you think you were an underdog at the finals and worlds for beach volleyball?
No.
Okay.
Because we were the top 2 teams in the world. It wasn't like
fair enough.
crazy.
Yeah.
I
was thinking more US Canada, not necessarily.
No, I wouldn't say that.
I mean, you haven't been an underdog very often.
I have been fortunate to play for some very, very good teams. So it's been rare, if ever, that I've been one. And I think that's why I never cheer for an underdog, because I know how it feels to be the team or to be the athlete that everyone loves to hate and that everyone wants to take down. And I like can empathize with that. And I don't like that.
In fairness, when I play CBVA, Sarah cheers for me and I'm always an underdog. So there's that.
There's that one. Question 3. What is the most prestigious path for a volleyball player and which path is the most lucrative? I would say if you're a woman, the most prestigious path would be to play top A1 Italy or for one of the top clubs in Turkey. That's probably the most prestigious. If you're a man, I would say A1 Italy or a top team in Poland is probably. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. There are some outliers who will make the final 8 or the final 4 in Champions League. If you're competing in the quarterfinals or above in Champions League, that's pretty prestigious, I would say.
Most lucrative, I would say, for
Russia.
a woman playing for those same teams. For a man, Russia. Go to Russia. Or actually Asia
Yeah.
pays very well.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, if you're not a star on one of the top Turkish or Italian teams, you will make a ton of money if you go to Asia or Russia.
Yeah.
Okay, question 4. What are your thoughts on the Indiana setter's ability to take her eyes off the ball, look at her hitters, the opposing team's blockers, and then execute the fast tempo set? I know it's messy sometimes, but that's an advanced skill for a freshman setter, and she'll only get better. I have some thoughts.
Okay, you go and then I'll give you my thoughts.
When you're a top level setter, you look for the blockers. You look for blockers' movement so that you can set away from where the middle is leaning or cheating. You see some setters do the full turn the head and look situation, and then you have other setters who can just see that out of their peripheral vision. Same as we've talked about hitters being able to see the blockers or the defenders behind. I think your number one priority as a setter needs to be, as we talked about last week, putting your hitter in the best position possible to score. And for me, that means good location, good tempo for your hitters. After that, it's the hitter's job to score. It is a bonus. It is a goal of a setter to be able to get the hitters a one-on-one, but it doesn't help the hitter at all if you're getting them a one-on-one on an unhittable ball. Okay, I would much rather, as a hitter, have a nice, well located set against a solid double block than be scrambling, having to tip a ball over one-on-one. That's what I think.
Your point is 100% valid. I'm going to answer this question from a coaching standpoint. So
He's like, so you're wrong.
No. You're 100% right. The answer is layered for me. Very often, I see players trying to learn or execute the highest level portion of a skill they're doing. So you see it all the time. Setters jump setting who can't set with both feet on the ground. Attackers trying to make crazy swings when their step close isn't right. There's a progression to learning these advanced skills, but you need your fundamentals to be in place. As the question mentioned, looking to the other side, taking your eye off the ball, that's a high level skill. I'm not opposed to you learning that. And as you learn that, it's going to be messy at the beginning, 100%. My question would be, is your jump set location consistent 8 or 9 times out of 10 without you looking? Do you have the fundamentals in place to put this next piece into your game? I don't have the answer to that because I haven't seen her train. I haven't seen her develop. If it's in place, go for it. Learn the skill, work on it. You're a freshman. By the time you become a senior, you're going to be amazing. If you don't have those fundamentals in place, though, you're trying to build on top of a wobbly.
You're trying to run before you can walk.
Exactly. And then that's not going to work. Are your fundamentals in place? That to me would be what needs to be answered before I could say, yes, go on and practice this and get better at this portion of the skill.
Question 5. Spill the tea, Sarah. Who is the setter you had the best connection with? I think we'd all like to know. Okay, I'm going to say 2.
I know. I can guess who your 2 are.
Okay, guess.
Number 1 is Fafau, who is unbelievable. And I think you're going to give a shout out to your number 2, Rachel Holloway, from your Nebraska days. Am I right?
Those are the 2 I was going to pick, yes. Okay, I played with Fafau for my 2 seasons in Brazil, arguably one of the best setters of all time. She was at the tail end of her career when I played with her, but her location, her decision-making, the way that she was able to fix questionable passes.
Oh my gosh.
It was outstanding. I feel so honored and privileged to be able to have played with her. Wow.
Okay, I have to throw in a story here.
I already know what story it's going to be because it's his favorite Fafau story of all time. Okay.
Okay, how old were we when we were in Brazil? What was I, 25?
No, 26. I was
Oh, my bad.
26. I was 26. He's older than me.
So we're in Brazil. This was the first year we had ever been there. And at this point, Fafau is in her late 30s. So
I think she was 40.
she might have been 40. I was trying to be nice. And I'm in the gym watching practice on one of the first days that we arrived in Brazil. I'm sweating. It's so hot. It's an open gym. You know, I'm watching.
Adam's just trying to set the scene.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm setting the scene.
ambiance.
So practice starts, and Fafau, in fairness to her, was a little slow warming up. Like she's not hopping right in, and I'm like, okay, how is this gonna go? And I'm arrogant, and it's yeah, I'm not understanding what's going on at this point. And I'm sitting there watching practice, and this ball is passed tight, pretty close to position 4, and she runs after the ball, goes up with one hand like she's gonna set the middle, and then flicks a one-handed set backwards to Sarah. Perfect location, perfect tempo, and I had to pick my jaw up off the floor, and I was like, "That just shouldn't be possible." It was maybe the prettiest thing I've ever seen.
True. And obviously, Rachel Holloway is on my list. I played with her in college. I truly believe that she would have been the setter for the US national team had she chosen to continue playing. Her competitiveness, her fire, her hands were golden. I honestly feel so lucky that I got to play with her as well, and I think she could have done some incredible things in the sport had she chosen to continue.
And she knew when to set Sarah the ball.
That's why I liked her. No, just kidding. Okay, our last question of the day, question 6. When coaching at the club/college level, are they always trying to make the attacker's window bigger? Why does hitting high hands seem to be such a difficult skill for hitters to do effectively in college? I don't know if they're necessarily intentionally trying to make the hitter's window bigger. I feel like sometimes you are limited by your own physicality. The ways that they do try is working on the step close, working on the last 2 steps of the approach to really like get to the ball that way. I wouldn't say that a lot of coaches necessarily focus on that.
I agree with you. Having a bigger hitting window is a byproduct of being good technically. A fast arm gives you a bigger window. A better step close gives you a bigger window. And that's regardless of how physical you are. So as you become a technically more competent hitter, your window gets bigger. It's a byproduct of becoming more technically sound. So it may not be, hey, this is what we're trying to do, but it happens as you improve. In terms of college hitters having a hard time finding hands,
I honestly would argue that I think they're getting a lot better at it.
definitely better than when you played.
Yeah.
And I think you have to because the blocks are getting bigger. There's a couple things that make
And
it.
defenses are getting better.
Yes, less clean kills means you have to go for hands. But I think there's a couple things that hinder your ability to hit hands. One is if the set's not in a spot where you can see in front of you, it's impossible to hit hands, you're guessing.
Yeah, I was thinking setter inconsistency.
So that's a huge one. 2 is for really big hitters, if you're playing against a small to medium sized block, the hands get up late. They're not there when you're swinging, you're over top of them. That also makes it hard to hit hands. And then blocking inconsistencies in terms of the timing and whether they're in the right place or they're not in the right place, that also makes it hard to hit hands. So there are inconsistencies kind of across the board and a couple different facets of the game that affect your ability to see and execute the high hand swing.
I mean, and as you get to a higher and higher and higher level, the skills are much more predictable. So it's easier to execute higher difficulty skills because you're better able to predict what's going to happen with the set, with where the block goes, etc. So that is definitely a factor. These questions, you guys are getting
Killing it.
like so technical sometimes. You're getting into the nitty-gritty. We love it. Keep them coming. I think we knocked off a whole bunch today during the episode itself and otherwise. So our list is down to only 5 million instead of 7. So keep them coming.
All right. As always, we've got your matches that you need to watch this week. So here they are. On Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, Minnesota versus Wisconsin. Minnesota has been playing better. Wisconsin just got kicked. They're missing their setter.
I think this could be a good game.
I think it could be.
And it's like a border game.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to that one. I think Wisconsin still has the edge. I don't think it's going to be in 3, though.
I don't think it'll be in 3.
Thursday at 7 p.m., we have Kansas versus Colorado. Colorado's still making waves. and still winning matches. So this will be a big one to see if they can hold on to their currently seeded high position in the Big 12. Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, we have BYU versus ASU. A little ship writing needs to happen.
Well, based
in
on my
this match.
prediction last week, potential number 1-2 teams.
Yeah.
No, I said TCU would
You
be
said
2.
TCU.
This is your potential 1-2 teams in the Big 12.
So we'll see. But the Big 12 is an absolute mess at this point. Friday then at 10 p.m. Eastern, we have North Carolina versus Stanford. Got to give North Carolina some love because they've been winning matches.
They've been upsetting some teams this season.
And they've become ranked. So I'm looking forward to checking them out and seeing what they're all about. And then Sunday at 1 p.m., Kentucky versus Tennessee. And those are the matches that you need to be watching next week.
That concludes this week's episode of Volley Talk. There's always something shaky in the volleyball world, and we hope you enjoyed this little fix. Be sure to follow the show so you don't miss any updates, and we'd be so grateful if you leave us a 5-star review. You can also find us on Instagram at volleytalk_podcast. If there's a topic you'd like us to discuss, let us know by reaching out on Instagram or at info@sarahpavin.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week.
Bye, guys.